You're on the edge of your seat, eyes pinned to the screen. Suspenseful music plays in the backdrop as someone is being chased through a building. It's all coming down to this one moment. They're fighting for their survival. And they don't use their brain? Critical thinking skills help us work through problems, analyze situations, and do everything from succeed in our careers to survive in a horror movie. They're a framework for how you can apply reason and question assumptions in order to work through whatever situation you're facing. And sure, you can gain critical thinking skills in a lot of ways, but if you don't want to rely on the school of life to throw you a bone, or a mask-wearing maniac chasing you up the stairs, you can get a head start on ensuring your final girl status. Taking a critical thinking skills class will set you up for the many challenges the world is bound to send your way. Hi, I'm Erica Brzozowski, this is Study Hall, and here are 5 reasons everyone should take a critical thinking class. That's because these classes teach us how to think intelligently, and from there, how to know things on a deep level. We usually hear about critical thinking in the context of the humanities. Liberal arts colleges are always telling you about the critical thinking skills you'll pick up for the cost of attendance, and it's pretty common to market specific majors like English and philosophy the same way. But part of what makes critical thinking so valuable is that it's crucial for all fields, whether you're in STEM, or the social sciences, or just a total lit head. It's what successful doctors, lawyers, scholars, and so on all have in common. And it's a skill set students have been honing with their teachers for a really long time. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Socrates would cross-examine his students with questions that poked at their underlying beliefs and understanding of the world. He'd ask about ethics and tons of other stuff, all for the sake of encouraging students to think more deeply about the world and their own assumptions. Basically, Socrates wanted everyone to reason their way to conclusions instead of just trusting whatever someone else told them. Millennia later, scholars point to the use of the Socratic method as one of the earliest examples of fostering critical thinking skills. But it wasn't until the early 1900s that the US educational reformer and psychologist John Dewey actually introduced the term critical thinking, although he also called it reflective thinking and sometimes just thought. For Dewey, it was an educational goal, one that fostered curiosity in children and encouraged a scientific mindset towards problem solving. Modern critical thinking classes are a bit different from the days of Dewey, and way different from debating with Socrates. These days, you're more likely to be discussing the ethics of artificial intelligence and genetically modified crops than piety and Athenian democracy. But these classes are a time-honored learning tradition, one that we've been using for thousands of years to understand how we know anything at all. And they're a great step towards expanding your world and growing your mind. Critical thinking classes can vary a lot. You can acquire these skills through everything from masterpieces hanging in the National Gallery of Art to an inquiry-based pre-calculus class. You can find these classes in a couple of departments, like English or philosophy. Depending on which department is offering the class, the focus could change a bit. A critical thinking class in the English department might emphasize the relationship between logic and language, while a philosophy critical thinking course could focus more on weighing the value of claims while growing your evaluation abilities. Now, not all colleges or education resources offer classes specifically focused on critical thinking. If that's the case for you, there's still hope. You can still learn critical thinking skills in a class that never explicitly mentions critical thinking, but does have you making comparisons between Edgar Allan Poe and Carmen Maria Machado, or spiraling existentially. What is the meaning of life? Does free will exist? Are you final girl material? Either way, if you want to make sure a class will build critical thinking skills, take a look at the course description, and if you can, the syllabus. These sorts of classes will usually tell you up front that you'll be analyzing and engaging with material, whether it's reading assignments or problems to be solved. They'll also probably emphasize the importance of crafting a well-formed argument and being effective in making it. Critical thinking skills are like a muscle. It's never too early to start flexing them and building up your endurance. Don't gotta get ready if you stay ready. And that's why it's good that you can also find critical thinking classes online without ever paying a hefty college tuition. Universities ranging from Yale and Stanford to Imperial College London and the University of Michigan offer these courses through providers like Coursera and edX. When you're done with these courses, you can receive a certificate of completion, which can be useful for future employers. No matter what critical thinking class you wind up taking, the payoff will be huge, both academically and professionally. or if you're ever on the run from a machete-wielding maniac. Like we discussed earlier, courses in things like literature will almost always involve analyzing texts, making arguments, and diving into hidden meanings. Those sorts of exercises only work well with sharp, critical thinking skills. Otherwise, you're going to miss the social class analysis in Middlemarch, or what Toni Morrison was really trying to say in The Bluest Eye. Or maybe you're in a history course reflecting on why exactly it is that you're always thinking about the Roman Empire. But even if you're more of a lab rat or an economist or the unfortunate star of a horror movie, you'll still need problem-solving and analytical skills. Thinking about how to phase out experiments, design economic models, or remember to never run upstairs are all going to be really important. And then there's your time in school outside the classroom, where you're navigating your way through a new environment while also trying to master everything from budgeting to the best way to study to making friends. That's all way easier to do if you're used to strategizing and making decisions based on what you've observed. Like how all-nighters definitely aren't making you a better student, but that a group study sesh goes a long way toward balancing out your social life and not flunking out of school. That doesn't end when you graduate. If anything, you're just getting started on a long road that requires critical thinking to do well. No matter where your career path takes you, you'll need to be able to think on your feet and make informed decisions based on what you know or have observed. Like if you're an ER doctor saving lives in a crisis, or an environmental attorney fighting to protect the planet. In both scenarios, you're needing to think on your feet a lot, whether it's to swiftly deliver oxygen or to come up with a counter-argument. Or maybe you're an electrician, inspecting where fixtures should go and thinking about how buildings work. Or a barista staring down a mountain of orders along with testy customers and a broken espresso machine, having to quickly determine the best way to calm everyone down ASAP. Those situations are all wildly different. But the thing about critical thinking skills is that they prepare you for each and every one of those scenarios, and a whole lot more. Killing it in class or at work is great. Not to sound like a ghost-faced apologist, but critical thinking skills can also make you harder to trick. Take reading the news. Keeping up with current events and what's happening in the world is really important, because unfortunately, we live in a society. But there's a lot of news out there and not all of it is true. Critical thinking skills allow you to evaluate all that stuff your uncle is posting on Facebook, like how Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson controls the weather. You can use your brain to know that obviously none of us control the weather, otherwise a person would keep it about 65 degrees all the time. Plus, the source he posted isn't reliable. It's from some guy's blog that also sells supplements and AR-15 keychains. But without critical thinking skills, it's more likely that you'll be fooled by misinformation or other traps that undermine the truth. And it's not just online news links. Think about graphs and charts or things like political polling. People are constantly pointing at data and saying a bunch of numbers mean one thing or another. But that's the whole idea. A critical brain doesn't trust things at face value. You always know to assess the evidence before you draw a conclusion. And that sort of attention to detail helps build your understanding of situations and patterns. Like noting that one polling firm tends to release more accurate polls than another. Or that your uncle really loves unreliable news sources and maybe isn't the person to trust about the weather. Honing these skills makes you a better member of society, someone who makes informed decisions and doesn't believe every bizarre thing you hear no matter where it's coming from. Not only do critical thinking skills sharpen your mind, they also help open your heart. Okay, that's cornier than Ghostface Mask. But it's true! An overlooked benefit of learning to think critically is that you build empathy and compassion. Think back to your early childhood, when everything was simpler and you never heard of taxes or chainsaws in rural Texas. At some point, you learn about sharing and basic kindness towards others. And it probably involves some version of the good old golden rule, that you should treat others as you want to be treated. Critical thinking builds on that very one-on-one way of learning to interact with others. And as we get older and our frontal lobes actually develop, we use critical thinking to go a step further. Understanding how we would feel about something is one thing, but a critical brain takes that knowledge and helps us see how someone else might also feel about it. And we build from there, eventually coming to a place where we can understand the feelings and actions of people who might be totally different from us and feel empathy for them. Like maybe you've been lucky enough to avoid having a hurricane decimate your home, or losing a loved one, or winding up in a horror movie. But if you use critical thinking skills, you don't need to have any of those experiences to understand why they'd be awful for someone and to feel compassion. Critical thinking helps us to understand what other people are going through, or why they've reacted to something in a certain way. Like sure, I'd also never sleep easily again if I was Sidney Prescott. So if the characters in every horror movie ever had just developed a few critical thinking skills, they would go through that door that was right there, or they wouldn't have gotten themselves into that situation in the first place. But if they hadn't, there wouldn't be a story, and then there wouldn't be a movie, and the entire horror genre couldn't exist. It's the kind of thinking that makes you really fun at parties. But it also helps you and your friends stay alive. This episode was written and suggested by Ev Crunden, a script editor with Study Hall. They support human survival, do not like horror movies, and have complained for years that people don't use critical thinking skills. They firmly believe that if everyone did, horror could finally go away as a genre and we could all be final girls. If you're currently in or thinking about going to college, check out our channel where you'll find more tips about navigating college applications and choosing a major. To find out how to earn college credit with Study Hall, go to gostudyhall.com or click on the link in the description. And if you want to help us out, give this video a like, tell us what class you think everyone should take, and smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, see you next time.